It is time for Streetwise with former chief of the New York City Sheriff's Department, former chief of the Seagate Police Department, retired New York City detective, Time Warner Public Access Media Award, Joe Franklin Super Excellence in Broadcasting Memory Lane Award, New York Veteran Police Association Streetwise Productions, host of Streetwise, Mr. Lou Telano.
Good evening and welcome back to Streetwise. You know, I'm here at this great studio now, which you know, Long Island Strong Long Island. Oh, it's either way. It's a great studio. You know, it's pretty much come to my attention all my years I'm in law enforcement that we have a very serious issue going on throughout the country, and for some reason it seems little or no concern. And if you listen to my guests and if you did some research as I did, to me, it's an epidemic. You know, I think what we're going to talk about recently surfaced, and we got some attention on it, as the multi-millionaire Jeffrey Epstein, who allegedly killed himself in his MCC federal detention house, which is a jail downtown Manhattan, and it has to do with sex trafficking and, worse than that, child sex trafficking. My guest this evening has been trying to bring this to the forefront for quite a long time. In fact, he has a movie out, 8 Days, which is exposing sex trafficking, including children. Now, if anyone has experience in doing this, it's my guest, because his sister was a victim of sex trafficking. I want to welcome to Streetwise Jocko Boyens. Jocko, welcome to Streetwise.
Thank you, Lou, and thanks for Streetwise, and thank you for the platform you guys have created to share some truth and shed some light on some dark issues. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I got to thank you because you're really out there. You on Life, Liberty, and Levin just recently with Mark Levin and on Huckabee. You're really getting this out there. You know, I have law enforcement people like myself, and they say, "Well, we did not realize it's such a serious epidemic in this country." By the way, you are actually from South Africa, and you're a citizen of this great country now.
Yes, a proud legal immigrant.
Oh, you're legal.
Legal immigrant to the United States.
You're right. But no, I didn't see you climbing over the wall. So yeah.
Yeah, yes. But you know, Lou, the shock was to immigrate to the United States and then find that child sex trafficking is so prevalent here. I mean, and I didn't expect that when I came over. You know, my sister was trafficked in South Africa, immigrated really to get away out of the country for safety. My mom, as a single mom, brought her over, and I came over about a year later. And then started seeing the signs in the United States and realized that, wait a minute, this is all around us. And at that point in time, there weren't many takers to help. You know, there weren't many that were willing to listen to us saying, hey, this is not prostitution. Yes. When a 12-year-old is sold for sex, that's not prostitution. That's not a prostitute. And we've come a long way in that regard to having laws. But I'll tell you, Lou, as a former officer, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
To this country, a law means nothing if not enforced. And we've got laws in this country, but the perpetrators have some deep pockets, and the strings go into some very influential sectors of society, and the laws are not getting enforced. Not in this crime, for sure not.
Well, the strings are correct, and I think we're going to see that as they go deeper into the alleged suicide of Jeffrey Epstein, because and I'm sure you agree with me, there are going to be a lot of high-profile people, if somehow they conceal it, but are out there. And could that be one of the reasons why we keep it so low-key? Because there are so many prominent people involved in this sex trafficking, especially child sex trafficking. Do you think that's why it's really not coming to the forefront, like you're trying to bring it to our attention?
Yeah, absolutely, Lou. And look, it's not always the 1%. And what I want your listeners not to do is to go, yeah, see, it's the 1%. It's the wealthy class that's doing this. No, it is in every class, in every zip code, However, there's always influential individuals involved. So we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire.
Yeah.
But a school principal is an influential individual in the community. And when it is known that he is a predator, a pedophile, they keep it silent because it is a major black eye on the boosters of the school, on the community, the mayor's office, et cetera, right? So it's not always that it needs to be a billionaire. It's people of influence are involved, Fortune 500 CEOs, community leaders, and sure, the buyer of the crime can be anything from a janitor all the way up to a Jeffrey Epstein multi-billionaire, who, by the way, had a very, very long list of friends who he serviced. Epstein, nobody wants to talk about this. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just a pedophile who had sex with children. Jeffrey Epstein was a pimp. He was a sex trafficker. He provided modes of transportation, 3 locations, one foreign, 2 domestic, to his friends to come and have sex with children. He was a pimp.
Yes.
And if he was going to be tried, he should have been tried as that. He wasn't going to be. They were going to take 2 cases and bump it down to a misdemeanor. But that's really, in essence, what he did. I mean, he was a facilitator of children for his friends.
For many years. And so with his influence, he seemed to get away with it about a dozen years ago. We knew this, that he was not new to us, But now things are revealed that there was so many different cover-ups in this. How did you, aside from, I know it must have been very traumatic for you and your family to have your sister go through this, but she's a survivor. Not everybody can survive from this, correct?
That's right. She is a survivor, Lou. And anybody that makes it through this, they're survivors. And she's got an amazing testimony, an amazing life now in Nashville, Tennessee, where she's actively fighting this on the psychological side, really being kind of a first responder to some of these young women and men that come out of this. But so few, even when they're rescued, Lou, that doesn't mean they're surviving. I mean, they survived the trauma, but the rehabilitation process is so difficult. The success rate is so low because you're dealing with a human being that's completely destroyed. And so suicide is very prevalent. Most of them are addicted to some sort of substance at that point. That's no longer available. The shame, the blame, how do you integrate in society, and then something we're seeing today more often than not is all these children that are trafficked, they're also making porn with these kids and they stream it online. So now a child is rescued. We had a girl, she's 24 years old recently, just randomly one day find, someone messaged her, say, hey, there's a porn movie about you out there when you were 12.
Amazing.
And it's circulating. So it's a re-traumatization of these victims over and over again. And that's very hard to deal with. It's hard to come back from.
Well, hard to deal with is, you mentioned the girl 12 years old, but you also mentioned something, folks, I just hate to say this, but it's the fact. I'm going to say one of your cases, because you were instrumental working with the feds on this, was a 2-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I don't know, could be much more mind-boggling, and I don't know. That's, to me, that is definitely a death penalty case. If I ever see one.
Lou, come on. I mean,
it's just
for a second, and I know the listener wants to tune out. Do not tune out. Listen, what if it was your child? You would spare no resource. So I'm asking you to engage with me here as a listener and a viewer. A 2-year-old, the kind of evil.
Yes.
The kind of evil that we're talking about here. You're talking about people that they're not human beings. I mean, they are inhumane. Yes. Even Epstein. It's a sport. Now all the artwork is coming out. It's a sport for these guys, like it's big game they're hunting, right? And so we need to throw the book at these guys. There's no, the fact that a lot of the demand side, because supply meets demand, Lou. Wow. You're close to Wall Street. Wall Street lives by supply meets demand. If they don't want it, it won't sell. Because there's such a high demand in this country for pornographic and explicit material of children, for pedophile-driven material, there will be supply. And unless we really go after demand and make an example of these guys who pay for sex with children, we've got a very, very long road ahead of us unless we throw the book at these guys.
So actually, Jeffrey Epstein allegedly, again, I'm going to say allegedly committing suicide. It could be sort of a godsend because now, besides that, you're getting, I think, more attention than you should have gotten in the past because now that case or what happened to him is starting to surface all over the place, and people are realizing, that this is, I mentioned earlier, an epidemic that's going on in this country. So
it's real, Lou. And yes,
real.
It is. It has helped. People ask me, Jaco, does the Epstein thing help? Yeah, for sure it helps. But don't for 1 second, like I said earlier, just say, okay, it's the upper elite. It's not. It is in every zip code. And I'm not here for fear mongering or scare tactics. I'm just giving you brass tacks. I'm in the trenches.
Yeah,
it is very, very real. The number one growing occurrence of children being sold for sex today are children being sold and trafficked by their own families. Now the child is living at home. You're a former police officer. How difficult do you think it is to profile that case? That child goes to school during the day. That child is sold for sex by a father or a mother in the afternoon. And it's the principal and the community leaders and the neighbor that's coming. It is an epidemic which I attribute to a loss of our morality in the United States. We've lost moral compass. We've gone so far to where life has no value. We don't value life. And I'm not saying all Americans. There's a lot of Americans that value life, but there's some extremists that do not value life. You can't value life when you abuse a child. That's not possible.
Yeah, I could think of one case, which I really hate to talk about myself when I have a guest such as you on, but and I did mention it to you, I think, yesterday when we were talking before, about you coming on the show. I had a case, in fact, there was Marcy House's projects in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, where the cops came in, they were shot at, and there were debris thrown at them in this area, and they had to leave the area. I had a case there, which we didn't call it sex trafficking at that time. There was a 9-year-old girl visiting her 9-year-old friend next door, and that family was selling her to different people. They were actually, it was sex. And how it happened is we were getting information. There was a lot of traffic at that particular apartment, but we assumed it was drug traffic. But then we saw, because that's where you wouldn't, but then when you start, now this is all completely African-American area. So now we see middle-aged white men going there, and that's a flag, of course, and young people that do not look like crackheads, going there. And it was more than that. They were actually selling this 9-year-old girl who was borderline, she had some mental issues, so she really, she really couldn't comprehend what she was doing. But she knew they were giving her a lot of ice cream. They were buying her clothing, and they were taking her to the store. So it was sad that the only risk we made out of that was a 14-year-old brother of the girl, the neighbor, who admitted having sex with her, the 9-year-old girl. We couldn't get these other people, these adults, that we staked out the place, the word got around. But that was actually sex trafficking, that they were doing with this 9-year-old girl. And now we're talking about a 2-year-old child. It's just, I don't know. It's
beyond. Your mind doesn't. You don't want to think of these images, Lou, and you don't. Look, but we have to, because they are the vulnerable. They are the defenseless. And I don't look. You could say my son is 17 years old and he's a big boy and he's quarterback for the high school team.
Right.
He's still a child.
Correct.
He's a child. He's not. His frontal lobe is not even formed. He's not even thinking with his left and right brain at this moment. These are children, and if we cannot, as adults in this country, put our political affiliations aside and say, listen, certain things are off limits. There has to be certain off-limit topics in our society. I mean, it's off-limits to mess with our children. We're going to unite, but I'm not seeing that, Lou. I'm telling you, you are unique, sir. Hear me today. There's not that many that you think may jump on this bandwagon like you are saying, listen, this has got to stop. It's one thing to talk about it, but I'm talking about an attitude saying it cannot be in our society. We cannot have our children be slaves. In the United States of America, this is unacceptable. And so unless we take that kind of an attitude of drawing a line in the sand and saying, if you're that evil, we're not going to wait for you, we're coming for you. We're coming with full force and vengeance. Like I've always said, one of my greatest experiences, and you may have been an officer at this time, is when I landed in the United States of America weeks after 9/11.
Right.
I went straight to New York City because my grandpa was a fire chief in South Africa, and he gave me a letter to take to engine number 9. And he said, you go, you give those boys a message. And I walked there, and I saw an America that I will never forget. I saw a united group of people, 300 plus million people that said, you're not going to mess with us. There's certain things that you're not going to do. You're not going to come into our house and mess with us. I want that kind of an attitude towards our children, because we can't politicize our children. We can't say, well, it's this sector of society, because the perpetrators and the crime does not discriminate. It doesn't care about race, gender, age, class. It doesn't care.
Yeah. You just said, you remind me of something in with 9/11. There was a lot of camaraderie. The country was somehow we got together during that period of time, and we seem to have lose that. You know what I just interesting, I found out recently that aside from taking prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance out of our school, the young children are not even being taught about 9/11. They have no clue. High school kids who are 17, I was talking I interviewed a lady a couple of weeks ago who wrote a book on that because her father was a fireman who lost half his friends in the fire department, and then she was talking to youngsters because she's assistant educator. She does the part-time, and she was talking about 9/11, and she found, you mentioned 17-year-olds. 17-year-olds, oh yeah, we heard there was something like that. It's not even being...
And Lou, if you ask yourself why, and really these things are connected. They're really connected. And this is not just some conspiracy theory. I want to explain how this thread works. Why are we not teaching 9/11 to our 8, 9, 10, 12-year-olds? Why are we not doing that? Because there is a fear in society that it's not politically correct.
Correct.
Because you would have to just let the facts, like a court case, just put the facts on the table. You don't mess with history. Don't change history.
Yes.
Right? Slavery was slavery. Call it what it was. But 9/11, there's a certain group of people that came to harm this country. So call the fact. But now we don't want to do that because the fear of being politically incorrect. The same is happening with trafficking. There's such a fear by the good guys to stand up against pedophilia, because if you stand up against the pedophiles, they tend to also group themselves in a certain sector of society. Well, now you may have to stand up against, some of the other things that are going on in this nation, and so people stay silent. Look, there's a quote that says the following, and I believe it. I live by it. Evil exists when good men do nothing.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah, well, I believe in that because I've dealt with them before. Before I walked the beat in the streets of Brooklyn and the Lower East Side, I walked the beat in the city jails. Fortunately, I'm one of the few that worked my way up to chief of police and chief of the sheriff's department, city of New York. Yeah, I'm talking about myself, but I just want to just mention the experience I have in dealing with this. You had mentioned a moment ago that people don't want to face it, don't want to realize it, and don't want to confront it. Now, I know that you tried to talk to some of the Hollywood crowd to get involved and try to help you in this great endeavor that you're trying to do, and they hide their head in the sand like it's not happening, right? So, or they're, but anyway, that was one of the problems that you're having, trying to get people, Hollywood people always look for something to jump on. Why don't they jump on this if they want to do something worthwhile?
What a question, Lou. Ask yourself that. Ask yourself, why do we not get support? And I'm just telling you, I'm speaking just facts to you.
Yeah.
Mark Levin asked me, Jaco, has CNN had you on? No. Have you reached out? Absolutely. Why have they not had me on?
Right.
Ask them. Ask them. But look at the ties between CNN and Hollywood. Look at the ties between what's happening at Disney and Hollywood. Just look at what's happening. Hollywood is infiltrated with pedophiles. Infiltrated.
Yes.
Washington, D.C. is infiltrated with pedophiles. It's the boys protecting the boys and the girls protecting the girls because there's so much dirt that they have on one another. They know. We always say they know where the bodies are buried, right? They know. And so they dare not talk. Now, should something go awry, they love to make an example of one of their own, like throwing Epstein to the wolves, right?
Yes, of course.
Or throwing Harvey Weinstein to the wolves, who is a pedophile, but he's not alone. That guy's not alone. Come on. I mean, there's hundreds of them.
Yes.
That run that in Hollywood.
You know what I'm hoping to see? I'm drifting a little bit. I'm hoping to see some of these Democratic political primary candidates accusing each other of that, because I think they're going to get to that point where they're going to start to expose each other of all these different crimes that they are involved in. And that may be one of them, I think, because they're getting desperate. I had said on Twitter over a year and a half ago, the greatest show on earth will be coming soon when we watch the Democratic presidential
cannibalize each other.
Primary. They're going to start attacking each other. And some of that stuff may surface.
Look, I said I don't think President Trump has a problem. I really do not with the next election. He needs to sit back right now and look. Whoever he's going to run against is going to be so beat up. It's going to be so bloody. I mean, it's going to be a shell of a person because they're going to cannibalize each other. Because here's the thing,
exactly.
Luke, they don't care about the fellow man. If they did, why can I not get feminist groups? Feminist groups.
I was going to mention that. I was going to
support me in this fight, right? Because if you're a real feminist, then listen to this statistic. Over 90% of children sex trafficked in the U.S. today are girls. So if you're a true feminist, then come take arms with me, leave your politics aside, and let's go fix this. But they're nowhere to be found because it doesn't fit their agenda. Because if a single feminist group comes to me and says, you know what, Jaco, there is a possibility, just a possibility, that a child is being trafficked across the Mexican border, which 30% of them are being sold into sex trafficking, then they would have to make a case for border security. So in order to keep their rhetoric going, not to have border security, which they voted for 5 years ago, by the way, they will have children be harmed, knowing that it's happening, just in order to keep their agenda going. To me, they're complicit.
Speak about evil, right? Speaking about evil, that just fits in with them. Yeah, did you have discussion with the so-called Me Too group?
I had a Breitbart interviewed me and said, Jaco, what do you think of Me Too? And I'm being very honest when I say this. Me Too started out right. It started out by saying, listen, no person, never mind women, no women should go through rape. If you have been raped, speak up. Speak up. But the movement got hijacked by the left. We saw what they did to Kavanaugh. Despicable.
Right.
The movement got hijacked. Like any good thing that starts on that side, it gets hijacked and they make it political. Why does rape have to be political? It's so gruesome. It's so awful that women go through that. Just let it be and build something that can actually stand. But they hijacked it. And instead of it being a Me Too movement, it became a me movement. It became, it just changed the world for me, and so it got hijacked. So, no, there's not been support from that group. Again, Lou, because what I'm asking people to do here is to say, listen, it's not about you. It's about children. Don't make it about you. Don't make it about your rhetoric or your political agenda or your next talking point. Make it about actionable, success. I need to see points on the board. I want to see pimps go down. I want to see these Johns, these buyers convicted. I don't care if you are the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and if we arrest you, it's going to knock the stock market by 100 points. I could not care less. One child is worth it.
Absolutely.
It's worth
Good
it.
point. Good point. So you do many things now. You are a producer and director of 8 Days, right? But I think your wife is the writer on that. Am I correct?
Yeah, my wife is a professional full-time screenplay writer.
Yeah.
In all the films we make, Lou, in our production company, we tie to social justice. So we're not going to produce a movie just to produce entertainment.
Yes.
I mean, this is a feature film to fight child sex trafficking, right? And now we're producing a documentary at the moment, a docuseries with raw, unfiltered, double-blind questioning, almost like interrogation, almost
Right.
of people in the industry, and we're not touching it. They don't know the questions, and there's no editing. And I'll tell you, when that comes out in about a month or so, it is shocking what's going to come out. I mean, about who really stands in line to buy, who really shows up, who in community. It's not who you think, And so this thing has a very ugly face. And I'm asking the American people, it is time for us, our men and women, and something I meant to say earlier, for me, the greatest police force on earth is the NYPD. Because what they deal with on a daily basis, there's not a single type of crime that they don't have to govern. Highly populous areas, super condensed, very congested, a target around the world, obviously, as we saw in 9/11. Under-resourced, overexposed. We cannot lean only on our police force and say, this is your problem to fix. It's not possible. These guys cannot do it. It's physically not possible. The community has to start self-policing by paying attention, by notifying the authorities, by asking questions, by engaging with children in the community on your street. No more of this see no evil, hear no evil approach.
Yeah. Yes. Well, right now we're going through terrible times with the New York City Police Department. Because we have a terrible mayor here in the city of New York.
I miss Rudy Giuliani. I've met him, and I've got great respect for the man. I miss, just look, Lou. It's always leadership, right? It comes down to leadership.
It's management, leadership, and really, I was fortunate enough to be Rudy Giuliani's law enforcement liaison. So I did so many things, and I'm here now doing. But I've been doing this for many years. I ask sort of a nostalgic question, and I'll mention it to you. And I don't think you'll have the answer. We all pretty much know about Anthony Weiner and his sickness, right? So my question is, and even my chief engineer, Jason, I'm not sure if he knows, is if anyone knows who ran against Anthony Weiner when he first ran for Congress. Anyway,
I don't.
You're talking to him. We're having a conversation. You're having a conversation with Lou Telano, who ran against Anthony Weiner in 1998. And so.
Did your crew know that, Lou?
I don't know. Well, did you know that, Jason? Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure if so many people know about that, but they can Google it and they see. And so I hear all these things now. Well, you're a right winger. You're a Republican, and I got news for you folks. I'm not a registered Republican. I was never a registered Republican. So they assume because I can tell Jocko, you and I agree with the same thing. So because we do, I'm a right winger somehow. And that's how they get to you. But when he was running, I was telling people out there, and they were laughing. I said, this guy is a degenerate. And it's not a problem. I don't have a problem saying it. He was a cross-dresser at that time. I've seen him, and I said it before, Chuck Schumer on Ocean Parkway, Brooklyn, because he was campaigning with him. They were holding hands, walking in the street, holding hands together, until somebody tipped them off, and they said, hey, you got to stop holding hands. Doesn't look. They didn't realize they were, So he almost became actually. It doesn't make a difference now because now we got the squad, so we got worse people in there. So in Congress, but I drifted from what you and I were talking about. So you're a producer, I directed. You got 8 days. What made you? Is this an awareness type thing? The 8 days, so people in America could realize that we have this terrible thing going on, and this is your way of bringing it to our attention?
Yeah, Lou, it was very important for us when we made this movie that it was a feature film. All the stories are actual stories that we were involved with. So it's real stories. Of course, we changed the names and the locations of the children, but those are real stories. There's real people behind them. But it was important for us to make sure we cover all the bases factually so that if a rehabilitated pimp, which we had, look at the movie and he said, that's how I did it. A victim would say, that's what they did. The law enforcement, officers in the movie are actually not actors. It's actual Homeland Security operatives that are in the movie. I wanted it real so that it was authentic. And what ended up happening, yes, it's an awareness tool to say, look, this is what it looks like. This is an example of how quick it can happen. But what it has become, it's become a training tool. So that film now around the world, 56 countries around the world, is a training tool for TSA, FBI, CIA, local police department, police chiefs. It's in the hands of Mossad in Israel, at the Tel Aviv airport, Africa, the Philippines. It's become a training tool to say, hey, this is what it looks like. Let's have a conversation. Let's do these training seminars, get people aware. It's training nurses, all the first responders. Can you imagine nurses? You have girls walking into an ER after being beat up by some sicko that wants to bounce them off a wall for sex.
Correct.
The pimp walks them into the ER and they walk out because the nurse is not trained in nursing school to know what does sex trafficking look like. Okay, the girl comes in, you can ask questions, but if she's not willing to, because the pimp is right there. So there's so much work to be done here to bring awareness. And so that's the main purpose of 8 days is to say, wake up, America. It is real. It is local. This is a picture of what it looks like. Now let's have a conversation.
Right. Well, it's heavy. It's very. Can the average person really want to look at that and believe the facts? That's our problem. Also, they just want to hide their head in the sand and say like it doesn't happen. They just But it's now. What Jason, my engineer. What would we do if we didn't have people like Jocko? Boys doing these things. Well, I didn't know what we do because we there's always in history. There's always someone like you. This is that I'm happy to have this conversation with you because these things run rampant. And sometimes, like when I was a detective in the city, we felt like we were alone. We had nobody agreeing with us. We had nobody supporting us. We've locked up pimps. Pimps came in, like you said, into the hospital. I've seen that into the emergency room and tried to get their girls back out in the street. I'll tell you one thing: those pimps in my time, they got a room in the hospital. So,
correct. And so they should be borderline needing surgery when you're done with them.
Yes.
Look, man, Lou, I'll tell you, and I speak freely. I've got very, very little patience and tolerance for these guys. And look, I'm just a guy. I'm just a brother who saw my sister almost lose her life, who had to see my sister go something, and I made a decision that nobody's sister, nobody's daughter, nobody's wife, nobody's friend should go through this. So I'm not special by no means. I'm just the kind of guy, Lou. Look, I'm from Africa, so we're raised a little different.
Right.
I served my country over there, and I'm just a guy that I love competition, but I'm also, when I made a decision, it's done, and I cannot tolerate evil. Cannot.
Yeah.
Cannot stand idle. Not on my watch. And so
Great.
I play offense. I'm not a defensive guy, so we're gonna go and we're gonna look. I'm at the point now where I'm asking this question: will you help me stop child sex trafficking in this country? And if there's hesitation, or it's not for me, in my book, you're for it or you're against it. There is no gray area. Make a choice. And, like the squirrel theory, when the squirrel runs in the road and it's indecisive, it gets run over. No decision is a decision. I had a guy on Twitter ask me recently, he said, either I condemn pedophilia or I'm for it. Is it all or nothing? Yeah, it's all or nothing. Yes, it's all or nothing. Because if you stand by idle, you will have legislation that approves pedophilia before you blink your eyes.
Yeah.
And then you were complicit, because that's where they want to go. There's a huge movement in this country today to legalize pedophilia, to lower the minimum sexual age consent to 10. There's an actual bill that they're trying to push to the floor to lower the minimum age consent. And these things don't just happen, Lou. They happen because we don't do anything about it. So, look, I will go to every single politician in public forum, and ask a simple question. Will you right now, to all your constituents, state that you are going to hunt down every single pedophile, every sex predator, everybody who's involved in child pornography? Say it today. And I'm telling you, the majority of them won't, because they know their party, their donors, the people that they're boosters, they know some of their friends are involved.
I know once in my time again, we went after an organization called the Man Boy Organization, which you heard of that, I'm sure. It was the Man Boy thing, and it was a pretty heavy thing. I think they've been dormant, but they never really are. They just conceal it better. So, well, we didn't have people like you then, Jacob Moynes, to give us a hand. So, but you actually go a step further. You actually went with law enforcement to do some of these, I guess, call them raids. Right?
Yeah. Look, and I really enjoy it, and for this reason, these men and women who we ask, like you, when you were a chief, you asked your men to put themselves in harm's way for Americans that they never know their names. This is the ultimate service, right? And so, yes, I want to be with those guys. I don't just want to be talking to those guys, and we've done it not just in the United States. There was 400 rescues in the Dominican Republic. I sat with the president, President Medina, the president of the Dominican Republic, and I said, "You've got a problem in your country, sir." And he said, "I don't think so." And I said, "Then why am I finding Dominican girls in the Netherlands, in Switzerland, in Brazil?" This is a fact. You got a problem. And their AG, their Attorney General at the time, said, "Look, I'll give you support." And there was 400 rescues, 42 establishments closed, just because guys said, "Let's go. Let's take it on." We can do this, Lou. We can actually take a sledgehammer to this thing and really do damage. But we're going to need support from our lawmakers and our district attorneys in this country. Look, I know there's many of them that are good. Right. But I'm just telling you, I am in good spirit asking our district attorneys, get your emotions and your opinion out the way and protect the children. Bring these cases to trial. Do not settle them. Bring them to trial. Try them for what they're supposed to be tried. Do not bump them down to a misdemeanor. Do not do this. Make example of these guys. Our judges, you sit on that bench and you do your job. You're an elected official. Do your job. So exactly, our school principals, why are you not teaching sex trafficking indicators in high school? Why are we not teaching this?
Are you asking that question of educators?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I am, absolutely. And I will tell you, believe it or not, there's some educators that just push it. They don't want to. In fairness now, there's a lot that do now come around going, hey, it is our responsibility to educate children,
Right.
But it's we need to start asking tough questions of society, and we need to toe the line, and we need to push back, Lou. It's time to push back.
Well, I do have to say this. If you have my contact, as president of the New York Veteran Police Association, which we're a national organization, we were the first group to endorse Donald Trump, July 4th, 1915. And even though we're law enforcement, we did take heat. It died down. And we took heat from places we were surprised we'd get heat from, because all we're doing is throwing support for someone that we felt would be the best person, and then we took heat for that. It was mind-boggling. But we picked a winner, and we're going to pick a winner again. That's my opinion. I got to ask you this. I mean, it's one of the important things. Obviously, what you're doing, you need funding. Yeah. How could the listening audience I don't even have to ask it, but I know you need funding for the work you're doing, especially now in this country, you're going out of the country. How can people help you financially? What can they do?
Yeah, and Lou, thank you for asking. They can definitely support the 501c3, the nonprofit organization. It's called sharetogethernow.org, and for a reason. It's going to be together. I mean, we can't just have small groups. So sharetogethernow.org. People can donate. I mean, it could be a tax-deductible donation for them. Some people don't want to give unless they get, or they can just buy the movie on the website.
Yes.
And it's a double whammy. By buying the film, you're supporting the cause, and you have a tool in your hand now that you can actually go to your children and your grandchildren and your community and say, look, this is what it looks like, man. And let's teach our children to also become way more aware of what they're doing on social media, because it is a disaster. What our kids and the desperate affirmation that they get from social media. So people can give to sharetogethernow.org or purchase the film 8 days or do both. And we would greatly appreciate that, Lou. And we pour it back into efforts like this to go save our children.
Sharetogethernow.org, correct?
That's correct.
And folks, the movie's 8 days, and I browsed through it. I didn't have time, but I will finish it. I'll probably finish it tonight because I just got stimulated. This is another question. Are you concerned for your personal safety? Because you're doing a lot of things that you're stepping. I'm sure you are, because you could be exposing certain people. Again, are you concerned for your personal safety, especially traveling all around the country?
It's something that I'm consulting with a lot of folks. There's a lot of good men like you in armed forces that are coming, and we're being diligent, Lou. I'm not walking in concern. You're now tapping on something else. Look, I believe God's got his hand on us, and this is his work, and he's protecting us, but we have to be diligent. We have to be smart.
Yes.
And I'm not out here just picking a fight, but I'm not going to be the guy that one day is going to stand in front of my Savior and say, I didn't do anything. Not going to be me.
Right.
It can't happen.
Well, that's not
can't
you.
happen.
We can see that.
Yeah.
Well, we can see that. But you're from South Africa. You should be carrying the machete at least, walking around.
Us Africans, we got tough skin, and look, I've got to be smart. We have to be smart and diligent, and by default, that has also put me in a place where I'm sharpening up on my own skill sets. We'll just leave it at that. Things that you are very familiar with, and I'll tell you one thing: I've got a really deep desire, personally, to do some work with the NYPD. I really do, because my respect with that entity, that body of people, right? And so we're about to do a new project, which I can't disclose right now on the air. I'll talk to you about it off the air, that I think is a great opportunity to include the NYPD and shine a very positive light, great PR on that group of people.
Oh, great. You know what the problem right now, we're in the NYPD now is going through some terrible changes. Police officer Daniel Pantaleo was fired last week, and what made it worse is that he wasn't even permitted to get his pension, which is it's like I don't know. It's like a double whammy. It's really like trying, and 5 years went by. But we all know when Mayor Bill de Blasio did his last debate, and that was one of the questions that they asked him. What about this police officer Pantaleo? Why is he still out there? We knew right away when he came back to New York, this poor cop was going to get fired. We all knew that. And what's happening now is, in the police department, he who hesitates is lost. You can't do that. You just can't hesitate. You got to make a decision on the spot. And if you notice some, especially they're showing it on Twitter, cops are hesitant to put handcuffs on somebody. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, because we've brought political correctness into law enforcement, and look, of course, there's laws, and even people in law enforcement have law. And am I saying there's never some rogue agent? There's always rogue agents, no matter where you are. We've got pastors in the church abusing church children. We got clergy in the Catholic. So there's always bad apples, but it doesn't mean it's all bad, right? You can't. Absolutes are very dangerous. You can't just go with absolutes. But they're treating it that way. So now all of a sudden, every police officer is a bad human being, which is absolute asinine. It's ridiculous to think that way. And now they are scared to do their job. They're hesitant to do their job. And I always just smile. I was driving through Malibu and Beverly Hills the other day, Lou. Right. And I just got to say this to you, and I just smiled. It was so ironic. I'm driving, from the PCH, the Pacific Coast Highway, all the way past UCLA up to into Hollywood Hills. And you know what I see, Lou, when I drive there? I see 40-foot hedges. I see walls so high, you don't even know if there's a house behind it. And I laugh, because I go, here's the precipice of the group that's against border security, but you got a 40-foot hedge around your house. Why? Wow. Why is it important for you to have privacy and have a wall? And why? If walls don't work and if it's not important, it's such hypocrisy. It's insanity.
I have to give myself credit because Barbra Streisand was coming out with a song criticizing Donald Trump about the wall. It was going to be big time. And I kiboshed it. You know what kibosh, the term is? It's a Brooklyn Italian slang, but it's really, anyway. So I kiboshed it by, I once, many years ago, we drove up to Mulholland Drive in Malibu, and we wanted to go just, sightseeing with different homes, different entertainers. And we drove up that road, and it was like talk about a movie. 4 guys come out of the woods, look like hillbilly rednecks with rifles, but they were extremely polite. And I says, I'm a police officer in New York City. I said, my wife and I, we just wanted to take a look at the sites. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Streisand doesn't want any visitors. You're not allowed, let's say, 500 feet from her wall, her gated wall. So I put that on Twitter. I put that everywhere I could put it, and that was the end of her album, The Wall.
I mean,
it's exactly what you're just saying.
I was raised by my grandfather was a fire chief. The man didn't speak 20 words a week. He was a tough. I was raised without a dad, so he stepped in there, and tough guy. But he always told me, he said, "Hey, be willing to drink the Kool-Aid that you're trying to sell." Okay, show me that you drink the Kool-Aid. If you're not drinking it, so don't talk to me about, hey, let's take on refugees, and you got 10 houses and you don't house any refugees.
Correct.
Don't talk to me about sanctuary cities, but you're not sanctuary, or don't build a wall, but you've got a wall. We need to get back to just logic, intellectual honesty, and just logic. You said earlier that you're labeled as a conservative, and you're not even a registered conservative. Right. You know why, Lou? It's because you're just using logic. Logic and reason has been thrown to the wind in culture today. Logic is like, what is logic? There's no absolute truth, or there is, but they don't believe in it. Everything is fluid. If I feel this way today, you should agree with me if I feel this way tomorrow. Yeah. And now in the midst of all this, I'm trying to save children from sex trafficking. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's groups that's moving to get pedophilia legalized. I mean, it's insanity.
So sharetogethernow, folks.org. I got that right, Jocko. If you want to make a contribution, because I know to do something like Jocko Boynes and his wife and the people that are helping him, it's very expensive. You could also help by purchasing 8 Days, which is a great book. Jocko Boynes is a producer, director, and now you had an organization. I just have it here somewhere. That's also just please remind me, I apologize, I can't think of the organization that you formed, you're the founder of. Some group. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, there's a number of things, Lou, that we do because we use for-profit ventures to drive our non-profit ventures, and so we've got an organization called Eden Green, which I'm the co-founder of, and we grow. We have a vertical farming technology. We grow food and produce. There's a whole management team that runs that, but that then again goes into feeding people, feeding the hungry. Look, we're trying to solve societal problems with real solutions, right? Not political talk on a hill, right? Actually, what are we doing on the streets? And so, but look, if I'm remembered, let it be remembered just for we want to serve those who can't not defend themselves, and that's why we get so much support from former servicemen and women, because they get it. They understand selfless service. They understand that, hey, I can't just serve when it's to my benefit.
Right.
I'm doing it, putting myself, it's inconvenient, or putting themselves in harm's way, or it's costing them money. So you, sir, in Long Island are a warrior, and I really appreciate you. Look, I can't say it enough.
Thank you.
Thank you for the exposure.
I just want to mention there was a movie called Taken, and it had to do with the Albanians, and you discussed Albanians in some of your literature. Is that close to being authentic, that movie? Because it was so realistic about kidnapping the daughter of an ex.
Liam Neeson plays the character.
Exactly.
And it's very authentic. It's one way that trafficking is happening. Right. Yes, for sure. Are girls being trafficked intercontinentally and cross countries? Yeah. Absolutely. The American girl is the dream girl for the world. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Lenny Kravitz, American Girl, the song, the American woman, the American girl, the American woman, the world.
Wow.
Wants the American girl, so very sought after. And so it is accurate. That film is accurate, but it's not accurate in the sense of that's the only way it's happening. It's also happening in our country. And look, if I could get a bunch of Liam Neesons in that movie, we could go kick some tail and
some
just
ass. You could say it like
just get it done. And that's what we need. But we've got to do it within the law.
Right.
I'm just asking the law to actually do what it's supposed to do.
Okay. I do want to say also, my organization, New York Veteran Police Association, which is national, anything we could do to help you, we're only too glad to. I just want you to know that.
Thank you, sir.
Whatever you may need. I don't. If you come to the city, you have all my contact numbers. And when we settle down a little bit, what's going on, the internal problems in New York City Police Department with the police commissioner, the mayor, and the police unions, I'm going to try to put together an introduction with you and some of the people in NYPD.
Thank you, Lou. And then when I come to the city, I come often. I'll actually be in the city tomorrow.
Oh.
I arrive tomorrow because I'll be on Lou Dobbs tomorrow night.
Oh,
I'm coming in to be on Lou Dobbs on Fox Business tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So I'll be in the city tomorrow. But when I come back to the city, I would love to buy you lunch, sir, just to say thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay. No, I'm glad. Folks he's a gentleman. He's a man's man, by the way, my guess. And don't you think so, my engineer, Jason? Have you seen other few people like that? So I have a beautiful young American girl just walked in here. Now I got to protect her because you say she's the most wanted, So
you better protect
I got to keep an eye on
her.
It gives me.
You know what, Lou? I'd love for her to hear this statement. I've got a book that's coming out in December, and this book is titled "It Starts with Women."
Mm.
Do you know what our society would look like when we build women again, when we accurately portray women as valuable assets to society and not sex objects? Because the way you get to a place where you have sex with children is you objectify women as sex objects, you pump up the pornography culture in this country, which is out of control, now to the point where women have taken the bait.
Yeah.
Sadly, they've taken the bait. 1 in 3 college students, female college students today now, are watching porn. It is insanity, because they're perpetuating the issue, but they've now believed, okay, if this is how I'm going to get attention and love, then this is how I'm going to get attention and love. So we got a couple things. So that girl in the studio there, protect her, tell her she's very valuable, she's amazing. All the women that are listening, you're amazing.
Not an older woman. She's a young pretty girl, and
yeah, sure.
I like when she walks in the studio here. It gives me inspiration to keep talking. Anyway,
it makes everything better, Lou. But I'll tell you this: the fathers. I've got a huge cry out to the fathers. I'm a father. I'm a dad. What an honor to be a dad, right? I'm asking the dads.
Oh boy,
let's step up.
Wow,
let's step up.
So
let's step up.
Jacko Boyens, thank you for being my guest on Streetwise. And the folks, it's 8 Days is the book, and share. If you just remind me of that.
8 Days is the movie, and
the movie's
share
8 Days.
togethernow.org. Sharetogethernow.org.
Yes, folks, you got to do that. I hope to see you in the city down the road soon. Jacko Boyens, thank you for being the guest of Streetwise.
Thank you, sir.
And God bless.
God bless you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.